It's the Auburn Observer Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Appreciate you joining us today, or evening, morning, afternoon, night, whenever you want to listen to this. We're recording this late Wednesday night. It'll be out on Thursday morning. Justin Ferguson here in Auburn, Alabama, joined by my co-pilot per usual, Dan Peck. Hello, Daniel.
Ahoy, Justin. Great to talk to you as always. And yeah, looking forward to another episode as we get closer and closer to the start of the season, and a lot of the questions, a lot of the hypotheticals go away, and you have some actual data to download.
We were talking about this before we started recording. It's stupid hot outside right now. I feel like it's gotten hotter this past couple weeks than it was before then.
I believe this is so far the hottest week of the season, or like right there. You know, there are parts of the state where Tuesday, Election Day, was the hottest day of the year so far. Maybe that record got broken today. I'm sure it'll fall soon. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's warm out. Shout out, as always, hey, the laborers, right? The folks out there in this heat. Really, salute to anyone who's braving the conditions.
So I did a interview, kind of like a stand-up little thing, with our pal Rosie from WSFA after practice on Wednesday. We're outside in front of the football complex.
Are you pivoting to video, Justin?
No, she's been trying to get me to be on WSFA for a while now, for kind of stuff they've been working on, and finally relented. And I will say that I say all I say is, like, we were doing it, and it was like interview was like a handful of minutes, right? I was sweating like and I'm not a big time sweater, like I'm not, and I was sweating by the end of it, just standing outside talking, not doing anything physically intensive. You're talking about, like, shout out to the folks who, like, are actually earning a living out in this heat. Like, be careful, be safe, and, you know, stay hydrated. But, like, just a nerd who's standing outside talking about a football team, it's brutal, man. It is absolutely brutal out there.
And I, as you know, Justin, I'm sweatier than, like, that Weezer song, right? Like, I'm a big time sweater. So but it's still
sweat like you're in what's the John Grisham novel that's the movie,
the Pelican Brief, or the
it's one of those.
Yeah, it's like that.
You're going 12 Angry Men on us.
Yeah, it's the how about, you want to get real specific real early? It's the John Candy scene from JFK. Like, it's like,
yes,
like,
yes.
Yeah, that's how hot it is outside right now.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Got a little bit of housekeeping before we get into it. We're going to talk, we're week 2 of Auburn Fall Camp underway. We're going to have first day at pads. We'll talk about just kind of the stuff we've learned and heard the last few days. We'll talk about kind of our biggest takeaways that I've gotten from camp, and just kind of have a good discussion about what's going on, the latest with the Auburn football team. As we're now 3 weeks and some change out from the start of the season, that Baylor game in Atlanta. But some housekeeping before we get started. Number one, it's a great time to subscribe to the Observer if you haven't already. We picked up quite a few new subscribers these last few days, which is really exciting. Welcome aboard. If this is your first podcast as a subscriber, you'll get another one later this week just because you're a subscriber. We will record. Auburn has their first scrimmage of fall camp on Friday in Jordan-Hare Stadium, and we will talk about what we learned from that and these last couple of days of practice. We will record that sometime this weekend and get it out to you guys. So that's just going to be for subscribers, so jump on board. If you like the observations, a lot of intel. As always at the Observer, what we do is I'm going to put everything I get from a day with interviews and watching practice and all that, try to fit it into one email, one newsletter, so you can read it all in one shot and go about your day. That's kind of that's our style and the way we like to do it at the Observer. If you like all that sounds interesting to you, auburnobserver.com, $70 for a year of the Observer. You can pay $7 a month if you want to try us out. I will say, if you want to save a little money, get that $70 up front. You get 2 free months basically in your subscription, because that's how math works. But Dan, this is the exciting part. This is a fun time of year that we get to talk about stuff like this. School's starting very soon at Auburn. Folks are starting to move in. Students are starting to move back in over the weekend. School's starting back next week. So it is once again time for us to do the annual Auburn Observer New Student Drive. We have had multiple people in the last few weeks.
I thought you were going to say it's time for us to do one of those bid day videos, right? We're going to do it's time for us to do a choreographed dance to a mashup.
My wife would know how to do that. So maybe she'll have some tricks up her sleeve there.
Combine like Dua Lipa and a disco song or something, right? And we
could do something like that. Yeah, for sure.
Do a Macarena to it.
We've had several people over the last few weeks who are Observer subscribers who have sent us emails and said, "Hey, here's a year subscription to the Observer. Give it to somebody who's starting school at Auburn." And we've done this for the last few years. People have just volunteered to be like, "Hey, here you go." So as I am recording this on Wednesday night, we have 3 Observer scholarships already out there. And if you'd like to donate one, if you want to say, "Hey, I like this idea, it's cool, I want to be a part of it," all you got to do is shoot me an email, shoot me a message, and I'll tell you how the easiest way to get that done. But basically what it boils down to is this: if you're listening to this and you are starting your school year at Auburn, upcoming, you're an Auburn student, preferably a freshman. We give preference to freshmen, but if you're a student that, older student, we'll accept your bids as well. Shoot me a message. You can find my email address on my bio on Twitter. You can reply to this email if there's a bunch of different ways to get up with me. You can find it. Leave a comment on the Observer. Anyway, if you are an Auburn student or an Auburn student, and again, preferably an incoming freshman who would like a free year of the Observer, let us know. There are people who have lined up to say, "Hey, we want to make sure that students, they get that. They don't have this, they're going through school, save your money a little bit, but you still want them to be a part of the Observer empire." We've got a few people who have lined that up. So shoot me a message, first come, first serve. Again, we will prefer freshmen, but if you're a little bit older, we'll welcome you on board too.
And if you're not an Auburn student, don't try to claim it, right? Don't try to scam us here. We'll find out, okay?
But if you're listening to this, and if you're a parent or grandparent, aunt, uncle, cousin, brother, sister, friend, family friend of an Auburn student, a new Auburn student, and you want to set them up with one, message me and we'll get that going. And again, in years past, we've started this, and then we've had a few people sign up, and then other people will kind of jump in and join in. So if you email me, if you're listening to this maybe a day or two later, and you're like, it's probably already been claimed by now, shoot me a message anyway. We pick up new ones all the time, so the door is open. But this is our incoming student drive. If you're going to be a student at Auburn this year and you want a year of the Observer, people have already paid for that for you to go ahead and get it. In years past, we have called this the Painter Sharpless Memorial Observer Scholarship. There is one of those out there as well. So you got that going for you. But yeah, it's, again, if you or somebody is an incoming Auburn student, preferably a freshman, let us know. We'll get them hooked up with we'll get he or she hooked up with an Observer subscription, and yeah, you'll be set for your first year. And again, Dan, I think if you're a new Auburn student, say you're a freshman coming in this year, it's a pretty exciting time. I mean, I think you're getting to the start of a new era of a football team, and what they hope for the sports we cover here at the Observer, a resurgent basketball team this year. And on top of that, a baseball team that's looking lining up to make some noise again next season.
Although I would posit, and previous years of the Observer, like the archive might bear this out, Justin, there have been a lot of exciting Augusts lately in Auburn. It's just that it hasn't. I think
this is different.
I think
this is different.
It's different because it's a new start. Certainly,
if you say last year, I'm going to come across the screen and punch you.
I think
last year. Come on, dude.
I think last season it was now or never, right, for that coaching
Right. That's
staff.
not necessarily exciting, is it?
I think and there was the belief that Auburn could maybe. I mean, the team was competitive in enough games where it was like, hey, they could, but it's like,
Dan, would you say that they were close?
You know what? I think that people have said last year's team, famously, people said last year's team was close. But no, I think absolutely. It's like, I mean, part of the reason people keep showing up is because there's the belief that like August is exciting. But no, I would agree with you that it feels different this year. And one of the things I think it's certainly a lot of this season is riding on it. But it's like one of the reasons this feels different is because you do have a quarterback who showed you some of his best football last season, right? And it's like, I think recently, probably since Bo Nix, you haven't really been talking about a situation at Auburn where you felt like the quarterback had this kind of positive momentum.
Yeah, an ascendant one, yeah.
Based on how he played last year, ascendant, absolutely. And I think that's got to be one of the driving forces behind the excitement for this year's football season.
100%. And I think one of the things we've heard a lot since fall camp started is that, look, Byrum Brown looked impressive in the spring. And obviously A-Day was not great for him, performance-wise. And that was the one that the majority, that was the one that people got to see the most of, obviously, because not everybody's at practice. But I think one of the things that we've heard the last, I guess we're now 7 practices in, will be 8 on Thursday, that people who are old to the team, new to the team, been teammates with Byrum Brown, haven't been teammates with Byrum Brown before, coaches, players, and all that, they're all looking at Byrum Brown and saying he stepped his game up over the summer. And like what you're seeing in the fall is like a more confident and a better looking version of him on the field. And Dan, on Wednesday, we get to have, the viewing window, and it was kind of cool. I wrote about this in the observation, so I'm repeating some of this here, but like just to kind of set the scene. And Dan, you've been at these practices before. You get those 3 periods, and it's individual drills, and like, okay, well, first period ends, you get the start of the second period, everybody's going through individual drills, and all of a sudden, the clock stops, and a horn goes off, like an air horn, not anything like the normal horn on the scoreboard, and
like reggaeton horns.
Yeah. The flex bomb drops in, and all of a sudden, everybody at every position group stops what they're doing, and they sprint to the defensive field on the outside part of the facility, and it becomes 11 on 11 right there. Boom! You don't have time to think. You don't have time to really gather up. It's just, we're playing football. It's 11 on 11 right now. Let's go. And I think it's a thing to simulate just kind of the intensity, the speed, just the how do you respond to adversity? You're in pads for the first time. It's hot. How are you going to hit? Well, then, hey, you thought you were just going through drills, maybe feeling like you're going through the motions a little bit. You've been doing this for a week. Bang, here you go. 11 on 11. Ones versus ones, best on best. Let's go get it done. And in that period, which, by the way, Enter Sandman's playing over the speakers, which I thought was a cool little touch. As it's going, first play, ones versus ones. First play, handoff to Jeremiah Cobb. Xavier Atkins comes flying downhill. Bang, tackle for loss. We saw that a million times last year. Does that. Second one, drops back to pass. Byrum Brown drops back to pass. Does a little quick slant over to Keyshawn Singleton. Falls incomplete. Throws a little bit behind him. Gavin Jenkins looks really good in coverage on that play. All right, there you go. 3rd and 11, right? 3rd and 11. What you got? Usually a death sentence for most Auburn offenses. It's a death sentence for a lot of offenses, to be clear. And Byrum Brown takes a snap, and he reads the field, and he looks to his far left, and he sees Jeremiah Coger's got a step on, I believe it was Blake Woodby. And he uncorks a deep ball that hits Coger in stride, and it's a 70-yard touchdown. It is beautiful. Bang, right down the field, touchdown. And you watch Byrum Brown from that moment on for the rest of that viewing window. And there were times where he might have misfired on something quick and something short, or just not as sharpest on the pass scale. But let me tell you, throughout fall camp, and especially what we saw on Wednesday, that deep ball is dialed. That is a dimension that Auburn has been missing in that passing game. And when you talk about Byrum Brown taking that step forward, Dan, it's that ability to take the top off of a defense, to stretch the field, to create explosiveness with his arm that I think should get people really excited. Obviously, a really good runner, but that deep ball accuracy, that finesse, that touch, that power that he's got on it, it's looking good right now.
Previous episode, we played over-under stolen from PTI with Deshaun
Yes.
Spencer receptions. What's the Auburn Observer entertainment purposes only Byrum Brown total touchdown over-under this season? Right? And going passing plus rushing and maybe you can cap it at the 12 regular season games so you don't have to get speculative about what's going to happen afterward. But as you've pointed out in the past, Justin, it doesn't take a lot in the touchdown category to start pushing for some regular season records at Auburn as far as what constitutes a good season in modern college football from a quarterback, right? Like there's if Byrum is as advertised, I'm curious. Curious what you think is possible.
So he had 42 last season at USF, right? In 12 games, didn't play in the bowl game. I'm looking quickly off the top of my head. I'm trying to think. Cam's got the record, I believe, is 50 at Auburn, and I'm obviously played 14 games that year. Not going to say anything like that. I mean, we're talking about a one of a kind type of player. But 51. So Cam had 51. Oh, okay, Dan. Cam had 51 in 2010. Nick Marshall had 31 in 2014. Those are the only two 30 seasons ever. Then you have Nick Marshall and Pat Sullivan tied at 26 behind him.
It's funny because the Deshaun Spencer over-under number was 29.5.
With the catches?
Yeah. Like that was the last.
I mean, that's a good number though. Does Byrum Brown have a 30 touchdown season? That might be the line.
Yeah.
That's a good line. I mean, that's a good line.
Yeah, I mean, and if he does, what does that mean potentially for Auburn, especially if the defense can resemble last season's defense at its best, and maybe you catch a break, a point you've made before, like if Auburn's quarterback situation is settled and they're getting top line production, they've got some teams early on in the season in the SEC where that is a gigantic question mark. Like trying to project what Tennessee's quarterback situation is going to be like when we break that game down right now. Yep. It's like we might as well be predicting like what's going to happen in a game of Yahtzee, right? Like it's like, all right, well, I think here are
feeling good about four of a kind here.
Here are all the different outcomes. It's like we're like doing a pregame show for roulette. Right, it's like all right, here are all the different outcomes that are possible, and we're
gonna get you on your Korean Korean restaurant slot machine.
The Roy Choi slot machine, slot machine. Yeah. So no, I think I think if Auburn is in a position where they feel better about what they're getting out of the quarterback position than some of the teams they face early on, like that's how you catch that momentum that Auburn hasn't been able to get in, basically any season this decade.
Baylor, Florida, Vanderbilt, Tennessee are all breaking in new quarterbacks. Every single one of those teams are breaking in new quarterbacks. Now, I would say I could see a scenario where DJ Lagway is successful in Baylor's offense with Jake Spavital calling plays, right? I could see a scenario where things are better for him than they ever were for him at Florida, right? There's a scenario where that happens and it makes sense. Banking on that in game one is a completely different scenario, especially when you're going up against a DJ Durkin defense in what should be a home environment, a pretty good home environment for Auburn in Atlanta.
I think you could make a similar case about all four of those teams on Auburn's schedule. right? Where it's like
Oh, yeah.
there's a reason to believe the quarterback situation is going to work, and the stars are going to align.
I mean, Tennessee, if it's Faison Brandon, it's like former 5-star. Jared Curtis is a former 5-star at Vanderbilt, and then Aaron Philo at least has been in that system before that Buster Faulkner is going to run at Florida this season.
And no coach is infallible, but like I would say Heupel has done pretty well at the quarterback position year after year after year.
What they did with Aguilar last year was pretty impressive.
And really, like going back to the UCF days, like what he's gotten out of that position, like since becoming a head coach has been pretty steady, pretty reliable, and pretty dangerous. So like that's true of the all the teams that Auburn faces early on. But I do think that you probably feel more secure about what you're bringing to the table than any of those teams do, and you think like, all right, well, if it's like like we were getting back to the over-under number, it's like if he can put it together to this degree, like that's how that's how you start to turn this thing around.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look, Dan, like the seasons at Auburn. If you look at the seasons at Auburn where people have had more than 25 touchdowns, it's Cam winning a national title. It's Nick Marshall winning an SEC title, and then the year after that where the offense was better, obviously they had the issues that fell apart, but that team was on track until towards the end of the season. They were on track to be a contender again. And then Pat Sullivan's like Heisman season is the other one. And then you even go down the list where it's like the 24s, it's like it's a phenomenal Damian Craig year, and it's Trey Mason running the ball in 13 as well as he did. So it's just like you're set up for something pretty good. And look, I mean, if Auburn has I'd say Nick Marshall 2014, and it's like they ended up winning 8 games that year. It was like if you told me Auburn win 8-5 right now, I'd be like, yeah, you'd probably take that. You'll take that. That's success. That's a step forward. But I think it's a sign with Byrum Brown. And I think the other thing with Byrum is just like he has become a guy that you've seen over these last few months where it's like it's an easy guy to root for and rally around as a team. Like that is a guy that, I mean, we've talked to him, we've seen him, he is the type of quarterback you want to be leading. Like there's no iffiness here of like, can he lead this team or is he ready for the spotlight or anything like that? We'll see how he plays on Saturdays. Like that's still a question to see what it looks like in the SEC. But I think in terms of, is this guy comfortable and ready to have to take charge and lead this team and lead this offense and give this program what it's been missing for the last several years? Dan, I don't think it's a stretch at all to say you feel more confident about what Byrum Brown is bringing to the table than the last several Auburn quarterbacks that have tried to be in this situation. And no shade towards those guys. It's just different.
And that's not to say that we, it's tough to predict with any certainty like what kind of season Byrum's going to have, and he's got to make a big jump himself when he's even though he played well against major conference competition in the past, like it's a significant upgrade. What kind of defense he's going to be facing. Really from the moment the season starts next year. But again, if he's up to the task, like what that could mean, because it really is like not to oversimplify, because other things have gone wrong too. But overwhelmingly, like since Bo Nix, since the injury to Bo Nix, it's like if you've had to point to the most glaring problem more often than not with the Auburn offense, I feel like I feel like the quarterback has been, and certainly the production you've gotten from the quarterback has been, it's been part of the problem more often than it's been part of the solution.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that's about as diplomatic a way to as you can possibly phrase it. But
look, I mean, I think there were good moments from Peyton Thorne.
Sure,
there weren't as many good moments from Jackson Arnold and those guys, but it's just it's.
You know what? Getting back to the argument we briefly had earlier, Justin, it's like I think year 2 of Thorne was an exciting season because you'd upgraded at receiver and
Yeah.
you had a quarterback coming back in the system that you thought was going to. I mean,
You had at least made a bowl game the year before.
right, and then
Because that's the 2 years ago. Okay, I will say this because 2 years ago that was like, Auburn's got a schedule where they could get off to a nice little run.
yeah, it's not like Cal's quarterback's going to be a Heisman winner or something, right? Like, what are the odds? What are the odds of that?
Yeah, I mean, you beat Arkansas pretty convincingly on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Surely you don't come back home and lose to them,
Yeah.
right? Right? Remember that?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. I still think that.
I think I said after that Arkansas loss, it's like, it's not over for this experiment, but it's like we're dangerously close, right? Like it's felt early.
There was a whole another year.
Early in year 2, yeah. I mean, because I was like, yeah, it's just because that game, not to rehash everything, but it's like that game felt like, oh, your path to even going 500 in the SEC is now blocked with a home loss to Arkansas, and that's something. And you know what? And I guess the parallel to this season there, or the cautionary tale, if you want to find one, would be when you have some winnable conference games early.
Yeah, they'll go into. Do not do that.
Yeah, like it's hard, and I know it's year 1. You don't want to overreact to anything, but if folks are walking out of the Vanderbilt game, and it's home conference loss number 2 of the season, like if you've lost to both Florida and Vanderbilt, like there's going to be a lot of here we go again.
You got to pull some rabbits. Yeah, you got to pull some rabbits out of your hats. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like you don't want to overreact to anything in year 1, but like we did have the New Mexico State game that year 1. Anyway, let's move on because we're rehashing things that don't matter anymore. Let's talk about probably the other thing that we've said with this offense, where it's like, hey, is this the culprit of the issues? Is this what needs to be sorted out more than anything else? Offensive line, and we will talk to Auburn's offensive line coach, Tyler Danick, on Thursday. We'll get to hear more from offensive linemen then as well. But Dan, I do want to say this. We're at practice on Wednesday, and I had heard some things earlier in the week of like Jacob Strand's looking good. Like Jacob Strand's a guy that's like his arrow's pointing up right now in terms of his stock. And lo and behold, Dan, we go out there on Wednesday, and who is the first team left guard but Jacob Strand, a guy who we had seen playing left tackle behind Joe Simmons. This is not to say Derek Plaz is out of the race. I think it's a competition for sure, and I think things are still up for grabs. And
you also get the sense they want more than 5 ready for
100%.
Ready 100%. For Baylor, right? And there could be more than 5 playing, even if someone, if everyone's healthy, right? Like it could still. I wonder how much subbing and how much, or if they want to keep
that's become more popular.
Yeah,
it's become a more popular strategy in this day and age on the offensive line than it has been in years past.
A third tackle and a third guard that play more than your average.
Well,
yeah.
And I think the thing with Strand is that he has swing capabilities. He can play tackle. He can play guard. What do they like? Do they feel like, hey, he might be one of our best options right now, and if he can play guard, that's the way to go. When you lose Ty Buster was that swing guy for you, where you felt like you could play guard or tackle, and it's like you fit in. Now is Strand going to end up being that guy where maybe not being a starter, but that valuable 6th man or 7th man, a guy who can play multiple spots. If somebody goes down, you feel like you can fit him in, and it's going to work. So keep an eye on him. I mean, he was a guy that, Joe Simmons said last week. He said Jacob Strand has some of the best technique of any offensive lineman we have on this team. He's a guy who didn't play a ton last season at Oregon State due to injuries. And Oregon State wasn't a very good team, obviously. So it wasn't like people weren't doing cartwheels about getting Jacob Strand out of the transfer portal like they might have been for a Stan Ramil or even a Joe Simmons or a Cole Best coming from that successful USF offense, him and Cole Skinner. But I do think what the case with Strand is that he has impressed people. He's got some versatility. He's got some experience. And that's what makes this, again, year 1 offensive line. You're trying to set a foundation. You would love to have guys start on this offensive line that you feel like could be here for multiple years and be that guy for multiple years. But you got to field a good offensive line, the best one you can. And you don't have that continuity, that chemistry, that experience that defines some of the best offensive lines in major college football in this day and age. You never were going to have that. It's impossible with the way this roster's made up. So if you're having to bridge the gap, right, if you're having to fill in and hold the rope, basically, a guy like Jacob Strand does make sense in that role if he proves to be one of those guys. And I went on a little bit of a rant, written-wise, in the observations on Wednesday. But I want to reiterate it for people who listen on the podcast. And I'm going to try to explain myself clearly here. So we write a lot of stuff from these practice observations, right? We get a lot of access. And we get to see drills, and we got to see 11-on-11 stuff on Wednesday, and that was we get good access. Not a lot of places have stuff like this. And we write what we see. I want to be very clear about something when it comes to how guys line up, where they are, first team, second team, all this stuff like that. Pay less of attention, or maybe put less stock in, hey, I thought that guy was going to be a starter. Was he doing not in this drill, or was he doing with the 2s and the 3s? That is not as significant as here's a guy going up. And I'll explain what I mean here. They did the 11-on-11 stuff on Wednesday. And Omar Mabson isn't with the 1s or the 2s in what we saw. Tay Meadows got a little bit of work. Bryson Washington got work with the 2s. Obviously, Jeremiah Cobbs with the 1s. No Omar Mabson. And I've seen people and hear people where they'll overreact and be like, what does that mean for Omar Mabson? Let me tell you what it means for Omar Mabson. Nothing, because that dude is RB2 right now, and he continues to be like, Cody Sigler. I haven't seen Cody Sigler do a lot of these like pace drills, sprint drills, 11-on-11 stuff. Guess what I know without a shadow of a doubt? Cody Sigler is the first guy in every defensive line drill, and they just want to get him to the season healthy because they think he's a difference maker. The first team defense in that drill, the 11-on-11 stuff that we saw on Wednesday, Dan. No Rayshon Pleasant, no Andre Jordan Jr. It's Gavin Jenkins, and it's Blake Woodby at corner. Does that mean that they have jumped over those other two guys? No. What it means a lot of times is when a younger Buddy Mathis is a defensive tackle first team. Does that mean that's the starter and that's the starter who's going to be tomorrow? No. What it more means is when you see those younger guys or you see those guys kind of further on the depth chart, get those opportunities. Usually what's happened is that coaching staff wants to see how you react in that situation or believes that you've earned the opportunity to get into the mix there. That's the more significant thing than, oh my gosh, why is this guy not out there? Or why did this guy run with the 2s or the 3s? If you know and you've heard they're going to be significant players and they're back off like that, unless it becomes a long-running pattern where you just never hear anything about them, that can be a concern. Early in week 2, no. It's more about the guys that get opportunities than it is the bigger name guys who might not get every opportunity.
Now we probably aren't that far away from guys fading away from getting reps and getting playing time. Like I think
already hearing about guys who are trying to carve out special teams roles,
yeah.
which matter.
I mean, because I think we're pretty close to a depth chart or a working depth chart concretizing in the next couple of weeks. But I would say like this is the time of year where they can experiment with those sorts of combinations, and they can use a drill to get a guy extra reps and get a guy some extra seasoning. Because like when you're doing Baylor prep, right? When it's you don't have time for let's see how this freshman reacts in this situation. Like you're trying to sharpen the weapon as you get ready for the game. And so I think that it's I guess cautioning people, and I think it's a familiar refrain on this show, like cautioning people against overreacting. Don't underreact, and
right.
don't whistle past disaster. But at the same time, don't overreact to news that a player was missing from a particular drill or wasn't seemingly wasn't first or second on the depth chart at a particular time.
I saw somebody say the other day, they were like, man, we hadn't heard a lot about Keyshawn Singleton in camp. How's he? It's like, I'll tell you what Keyshawn Singleton's doing. He's the first dude up on the outside every single time, and he's catching passes. Like sometimes being unremarkable in these drills isn't necessarily a terrible play. Because, again, we're not seeing a whole lot of offense versus defense. We're not seeing a whole lot of – there's some that is just understood, right? Like, there's some – like, I'll tell you this, man. Like, I said Xavier Atkins' name because he made a tackle for loss in that 11-on-11. I haven't said a lot about Xavier Atkins in this fall camp. Does that mean I think Xavier Atkins has fallen off? No, I just think it's just some understood, like, yeah, that maniac's still out there and he's still making plays, but, there's only so much space and only so much time, and so the intrigue happens when you do see shuffling elsewhere. And so, like with that 11-on-11 drill, it's those two guys battling out to be the third cornerback, getting first-team reps and saying, hey, here's our best receivers. What can you do with them? Right? How do you handle that? It's throwing a guy like Buddy Mathis who's got talent at that tackle spot and say, okay, what do you do against our first team offensive line? You're going to be part of this rotation. How big of a part do you want to be? Like, that's the kind of stuff that is more significant than necessarily, oh my God, here's, key player X, Y, or Z. He wasn't out there. Does that mean his legs falling off? Does that mean he sucks now? Like, no, that's not how it works usually.
You mentioned Singleton, and that's a great example where it's like, I think I sort of phrased this clumsily in the previous episode, as is my way. But like the
don't give yourself a hard time.
Nimrod and Singleton feel like they're going to be two of the three receivers who start, and then the question becomes: do they like Koger on the outside and Nimrod on the inside, or Nimrod on the inside?
Which is what we saw today.
Right.
That was the first choice line we saw today.
Or
lineup we saw today.
Or potentially Nimrod on the outside and one of the inside receivers, a Neptune or a Deshaun Spencer, potentially on the inside. You mentioned, like, you wonder how often we're going to see four receivers. With the array of tight ends they really like, and the fact they usually want to have a running back on the field. So yeah, being in the top three feels like it could be, it could mean a lot as far as playing time goes.
I'm gonna tell you, going back to the receivers, Jeremiah Koger looked good, man. And there are a few guys on this team. Koger's one of them. I would say Malik Autry is another one there. Jared Smith, to a degree, is like this. I guess my other one I would probably point out is like a new boy, Fagans or Nate Wins. But I think of really, it crystallizes in my mind of Koger and Autry are two examples because of how big they are at their relative positions, where it's just like, look, if they can put it all together, good grief, because they have these traits about them that you just, you can't, if you're a guy like Chaz Nimrod, right, who is a super hard worker and a veteran, he does a lot of things the right way, and he's coach's dream at wide receiver. They've really liked what he's brought to the table. Chaz Nimrod can be all those things, Dan. He can't go get on the jugs machine or go into the weight room or get on the field with the quarterbacks and make himself 6'4" at the end of it. There's some stuff where it's just you got it, brother. This is, you've got this. Malik Autry's as big as a house. And he's got a club on his right arm right now. And I'm telling you, man, he looks like a supervillain. He looks like he's going to tear your house down.
It's like the latest New Japan heel, right?
Yes.
They introduce.
He's coming out.
Big Van Autry.
Yes, he is. He's definitely got it. And put the mask on. He's got it. It's Autry time. That's the type of dude he is. But it's like those guys like that. Or it's like you have these gifts and you have these traits that you can't teach and you can't develop. So if you have the stuff you can teach and develop, you can put it all together and it goes. And it's like I was having this conversation with somebody on Wednesday at practice. And we were talking about Malik Autry, and we were looking at Koger, and Jared Smith was another one that brought up here, where it's like you watch some of these guys in high school, and they might not have been making every single play every single time. But it's like the NFL draft where like you look at a guy and there's a reason why the NFL scouts traits. There's a reason why they think like, hey, if you have the stuff that we can't give you and we feel like we can develop the things we can give you, we can make you a superpowered football player. And I see that in Autry and I see that in Koger, especially those two, because it's just like they're bigger than everybody else in their position, and it's just they're very, very athletic, they're very, very talented. It's just, can you get that consistency, that skill that comes with time, but also is the defining characteristic of some of your best players that you have on this team who aren't necessarily gifted in the same ways.
Yeah, it's that challenge of when you're projecting how the 5-star is going to do in college. It's like, can they adjust to when they can't just dominate? Like they can't just like physically overwhelm as they often could in high school. You know, in cases of and Auburn's got some of that. I mean, we've seen some of that at receiver the last couple of years when Auburn's brought in very highly touted receivers, and they had, I'd say a mixed bag of results as far as how those guys took to major conference college football. And that's a question that Auburn's got at a couple of positions this year, where it's like, how is the super highly touted player going to handle a real uptick in playing time? Malik Autry is a great example. I think Jared Smith's
a great example.
Is a version of that too.
And both those guys were 5-stars that I saw in high school that weren't necessarily dominating on every single play. But it's like you look at them and you're like, okay, but he looks like that. And like he's a very good player. I mean, those guys were fantastic high school players, but they weren't like, 30, getting like 4 or 5 sacks a game type of guys. Like they were different. They were different type of playmakers. But it's like these guys scout for a living at all levels of football for a reason. Like they're not perfect, but like in the macro, they usually do a pretty good job. And it's like, that's why like those guys have stuff that you can't really teach. And that's pretty impressive. Let me tell you something else you can't teach. And I guess you can develop this trait a little bit more. Sure. But there's also some of this where it's just like, man, you're kind of just born with it. Dan, remember a few years ago when Auburn had Keldrick Falk? And I've told the story before.
Rings a bell.
Yeah. I've told the story before, but like one of the first times I think it was the first time we saw Keldrick Falk practice at Auburn. And I remarked that when he hit the sled, it sounded different than everybody else hitting the sled. And I was like, for a freshman, wow, that's significant. That looks different. And obviously
it sounded like a Stanton home run back when he was a Marlin. Back when his name was Mike.
When he was Mike Stanton. But yeah, Dan, like I remember seeing that. It's like that guy's different. And if he puts it all together, it gets some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. But it's like sometimes you see stuff, and again, you can be going through a drill. A lot of it you kind of see some of the same stuff, but every now and then you'll see something where you're just like, oh, I don't normally see that. That seems pretty significant. Here's the version of that. I saw another version of that on Wednesday. And these happen rare, but that may not happen every year. May happen every other year or something like that, but it did happen to me on Wednesday. So I'm walking by the running backs, and they got this big blocking sled. And you got to push it. And you got to get your pad level right, and you're hitting no running the ball. You don't have a ball in there. It's just hit and drive, right? Skills that you're going to need to be like a pass protector, be physical, you're in pads, go for it, play. And these running backs all line up, and they hit this thing, and they're moving. And it's just like making a little bit of progress. It's real heavy. It's real just – and, I mean, these guys, good-sized guys getting in. And there were a couple of them that hit it high and pushed and pushed and pushed, and it wasn't moving at all. You had to get it let down. All that's going on. Dan, Omar Mabson hits that thing, and it zips across the ground. Like, it's just moving. Because he's strong as an ox. He's always played with really good pad level. He's got that low center of gravity because he's a shorter guy. And it's just like, you watch these really good running backs push and shove and like this, and they're making progress, but like, and then it looks completely different when that guy does it. And it's a little thing, all right? That's not going to determine if you're going to rush for 1,000 yards or not, in a season in your career. But Dan, the Omar Mabson hype train continues to go strong. And we've talked about this before. There are several players types of players on this team where you're like, when they get into full pads, when they get to hit, when they get to actually go play something more like real football, it's going to benefit them. Omar's one of those guys. Because this is, as he said after practice on Wednesday, I love contact. That's how I want to play. And so it was telling where it's like first day of pads, it's like, yeah, Omar coming. And that drill, it's just, I'm not kidding. I wish I had video of it. It's just that little sled just goes zip, it moves like I was running past it. Like it was crazy. And
Omar,
guys in a good spot.
Yeah, and I feel like his game was, he showed bursts of power certainly as a high school running back and even at times last year. But I think it was more the thought that like this is a really elusive guy. And if the strength catches up to some of the other things that he can do, it's like this guy could be, everything you hoped for and more. And yeah, you don't want to let the hype get carried away, because you still feel like there's a lot of carries in this offense for both Byrum Brown and Jeremiah Cobb. But if Auburn played tomorrow, if Auburn play, right now it feels like Omar's going to have a role in this offense against Baylor. I guess we'll find out what kind of role that is, when we see it in action. And there are other running backs to consider too. I think particularly Davenport, right, where it's like this is a guy that they didn't bring him in to watch football. Like, I think
and I will say Bryson Washington, there's been a lot made about him, like trying to get back to full speed and all that. He did miss practice on Saturday. I was told this week it wasn't a health thing or anything with him. It was, something that he had to, I don't know the details. It's just, he had to be away for practice for something. He's back. And not only is he back, I've heard, these last couple of days have had really, really good practices and is like continuing to kind of push forward and take those strides in the running back room. So that's another guy that's just like, oh, and then there's a dude like Tay Meadows where it's just like, we'll see about Tay Meadows, maybe more of a special teams guy. Jacob Bernowski, the special teams coordinator, said that's a guy who's popped on special teams and has looked like a guy who really cares about finding that role. Maybe more of a role guy, deep reserve, something like that. Always wanted to play at a school like Auburn, get this opportunity, former walk-on at Troy. And then look, first team offense is kind of doing some stuff out there in that 11-on-11 drill after that touchdown, and here's Tay Meadows. Here's Tay Meadows getting some touches and some opportunities. It's just like that's where you get really, really fun in that running back room. But it is kind of funny to think, and again, not a knock on the other guys, but I've made a big deal earlier in the year about Auburn's got 4 guys who are RB1s in the FBS last season on their teams in this offense, and yet the RB2, Omar Mapson, looks like he's going to be one of your top 2 guys and could be ahead of several of those guys heading into the season. And that's significant. That is 100% significant. And it's not just the fact that he's a local kid.
No, and it's impressive not just because you're talking about 4 guys who have played substantially more college football than Omar, but for Omar to be getting praise on his pass blocking. Right, yeah. It's like and
he said that's where he's worked the most, in this past year, which is crazy because like that's some advanced stuff for a young running back. It is really impressive what he's able to do there. Let's switch over to the defense. Let's talk some defense here, real quick. Kind of banged up in the secondary right now, trying to get back to 100%. Sly Smith's still in that non-contact jersey. Dan, he had the quote of the week for me so far where he was like, I ain't got a hit in practice, in fall camp. My coaches know I can hit. And it's like, yeah, they know you can hit. Brother, you can hit. You are a heck of a hitter. They feel like he's going to be good to go for the season. He actually, even though he was in non-contact, he was doing some stuff in 11-on-11. So having him out there, I think, was a big thing. But you're still trying to get 100% with New Boy Fagan. You're still trying to get 100% with Caleb Harris. So keeping an eye on those guys moving forward. I will say it was telling that when we talked to the safeties coach, Tim Banks, on Tuesday, somebody asked him, hey, who's separating themselves, you say, man, I don't know about separation, but Eric Winters is having a phenomenal camp, which is kind of a way of saying there is separation. But Dan, I think those if you're looking for guys who have really helped their cause out a lot over the first week and change of fall camp, Eric Winters has got to be high up there. And he's a guy we thought was going to play a bigger role this year, but I mean that feels like a foregone conclusion now.
And I guess I'm curious as to your sense of how much any of those positions do you think will be dominated by one guy versus rotation based at in the secondary, because it does sound like there are a couple of players that they want to play a lot, and maybe there's that much, maybe there's enough opportunity to get all of those guys a lot of reps, but it does feel like it's a long list of potential contributors at both safety spots, at the nickel, and I guess at the any other interior defensive back spot they wanted to use.
I'll say this: the best way to look at where this team is right now and how they want to play is imagine a 2 deep depth chart, right? Imagine 2 deep at every single position, and that's roughly where this team wants to play this year. Like that's what they want their rotations to be. Now, some are more than others, right? Obviously, you like him, but you don't want to have to play a Tristan Tia. You want to be able to say Byrum Brown gets every snap because he's your guy, right? Well, on the flip side, you probably want to use 3 or 4 running backs. You probably want to use 3 or 4 tight ends. You might not want to use that many. You might not want to go a full 2 deep. Maybe have 6 or 7 offensive linemen that you want to rely. So it's kind of a give and take there. But we know 2 deep at wide receiver makes sense. 2 deep in the secondary makes sense across the board. 2 deep at linebacker. I would say at least 2 deep, maybe even 3 deep in certain spots on the interior defensive line. Maybe 2 deep at edge rusher. So I think on the defensive side, Dan, if you're trying to figure out what this team's going to look like, less of who's going to be the starter and who's not going to be the starter, and more of each position needs 2 guys that they feel like can give you starter quality reps. So at the safety spot, I wrote about it on Tuesday. At safety spot, I'm looking at it like, okay, Caleb Harris is back. Sly Smith is back. Sly Smith Reed. Eric Winters, New Boy Fagans. And then it's like, okay, Champ Anthony, who's playing some of everywhere back there, including some corner. That 6 safety spot, it's kind of like that 5th and 6th, or maybe that 6 wide receiver spot right now. That 6 safety spot is like that 6 wide receiver spot where it's like, it's kind of up for grabs. Kind of feels like a free roll. Is it a Fred Gaskin? Is it a Jacoby Matthews coming back? Is it a Wayne Henry finding some spots on the field? A young guy like that? So it's like, that's a room where you can move it around. They want to play 4 cornerbacks, and you feel good about. I think you're getting closer to that 4 right now, honestly, where it's like you have Rayshon Pleasant, you have Andre Jordan, you have Blake Woodby, and I think Gavin Jenkins is kind of done. Now we'll see. There's time for guys like Shamar Arno, but like I'm feeling like Gavin Jenkins is kind of getting closer to locking that down. Linebacker, Elijah Melendez and Xavier Atkins, and I would say Bryce Diaz and DeMarcus Riddick. That's a good 4 right there. So, and
that's been the 4. That's been the 4 since January, right? In
the dawn of time.
Yeah,
yes,
in that linebacker room. The safety and nickel one to me is the really interesting one, because I mean, you've got some veteran guys that have played a ton of football. Caleb Harris and Sylvester and Champ. Like, these are
more than between 7 guys who have FBS experience, 4,600 career snaps, over 4,600. That's a lot. That is a lot.
I mean, you've got 3 grizzled vets, in the like Red Dead Redemption grizzled. Like, I mean, you've got
and even a guy like Champ Anthony has been here for a while, but he hadn't had a ton of reps, like compared to some of these other guys.
Well, a couple of injury-shortened seasons, right, where it's like that,
right.
But a guy who's
Matthews played a ton earlier in his career.
Yeah, but with Champ, a guy who, has still been a huge presence, like, to his teammates, even when he hasn't been available to play. He's been, because I think the year that there was the belief that he could come back later in the season, he was still very active, or maybe it was right after he had the surgery. He was still super involved with everything after that. Speaking of that Arkansas game, right? Like, it's I mean, to see Auburn be able to sort of blend those veterans with some of those younger players taking that big jump in year two, new boy and winners, right? I mean, that's if Auburn's defense is going to do these things, like feels like they're going to be a gigantic part of it.
You want to talk some special teams?
What stands out to you from the? How about this? Do you get a sense of who's leading the race for punt returner?
Yes. So that was my question. Jacob Bernowski, who I've really enjoyed talking to the times I have. I think Auburn having a dedicated special teams coordinator, who that's all they do. I think could be very helpful this year. And Bernowski's track record speaks for itself. His time in Miami, Ohio. He's had good units at Pitt as well. Anyway, I asked, that was my question. I said, what are y'all doing at punt returner? Like, who's working there? And he said, it's the slot receivers, as you would expect. That's a position that translates really well. But Christian Neptune, Bryce Kane, Deshaun Spencer, in that order were the guys that were mentioned as there.
Neptune returned a couple of punts at USF last year, so I did think that he might have the inside track at that. But if he projects as one of the top receivers, I could understand why they might think about looking elsewhere for a punt returner, or if they think he's a game breaker, maybe you emphasize having him there or someone else, depending on what they can offer.
And that's the point there. I don't think they're going to say, "Hey, you're too valuable on offense or defense." You gotta, because they're. And Bernowski was asked about this on Wednesday about kick return. He's like, "It's Rayshon Pleasant. It's Ray." He said about Rayshon Pleasant, he was like, he's elite there, and like he's proven. And he said, you can tell when Rayshon Pleasant's back there and he's returning a kick, guys go a little harder. They hold their blocks a little longer because they know he's got game-changing potential in there because he's proven it. So I would say with the punt return battle, I don't think the role on the offense is necessarily going to limit or determine if a guy can be a key player for you on special teams. Having said all that, when we heard Cody Burns over the weekend, Dan, talk about Bryce Kane and say, maybe a 7th or 8th guy for us right now, he's not as far ahead at some of those other guys who have been in this offense before. It's like, or a guy like, Deshaun Spencer, who's had a really, really great preseason, really great fall camp. A guy like Bryce Kane to me makes a lot of sense where if he's not necessarily going to be a key contributor for you on offense, that value he could bring as a punt returner is big, right? And that's the thing with him is that 'cause his speed is game breaking. Like that, he's got that shiftiness that you have in a slot receiver, but when he gets a lane, that's why he always made sense as a kick returner too. Where it's just like that straight line speed is fun to see, and if it's not going to be used as a top 6 receiver, that's a way you can provide value to your team without necessarily being a go-to guy on offense. So I did say, yes, it's going to be Rayshon Pleasant at kick returner, and they're not going to be worried about, hey, he's a top corner for us.
That's that's another one that's been settled since like January, right? Like when
settled since he transferred in 2 years ago. Yeah, like it's that he's that guy, right? But to your point though, if you're kind of in between, like that's where I think a guy like Bryce Kane could separate himself. And look, Deshaun Spencer might be that guy because, I mean, as we've seen here in fall camp, as what we saw in the spring, Dan, you like seeing the ball in his hands. Good things happen with that, and that's a good way to get the ball in his hands.
I mean, I wouldn't have been all that surprised to see Nimrod in the mix too, but I think they like what the pure slot guys sort of bring.
Mm-hmm. A little bit more speed.
Yeah, first and the first, like the ability to make that first guy miss. Initial shiftiness after the catch, which is something that Neptune I think did well. I think there's at least one punt return where he he gets a guy to miss right after catching it. We know Bryce Kane can do that, and Spencer was doing that after the catch all spring long.
Yeah. It was really interesting hearing from, like, we talked to the long snapper. Hadn't talked to him yet. It was interesting. He gave an interesting point. He said they've been doing pressure kicks at practice that Alex McPherson's hitting field goals right now. He's like, as a long snapper, I'm snapping the ball from yard markers that I'm usually used to snapping for punters, and I'm hitting a holder with them because that's how far out Alex McPherson is kicking. He's hitting well over 50 right now in practice. And Bernowski said he's not afraid to call him from 60 if they need to. Like that power is back for him. People are really excited about the way he's hitting that ball.
It's the return of the Mack.
It's just he's a special talent, and it's just he looks healthier, he looks more settled, and the accuracy's been there. It hadn't fallen off for him, but it's just that power coming back. I think is pretty fun. They're also like putting him in pressure situations. He's doing well. It was an extra point, but like they did a situational thing at the end of practice, and it's like, hey, it comes down to offense scores a touchdown. They need this extra point to win the game, and so make sure you don't screw anything up on this extra point, and automatic. As it's been throughout the career. So interesting there with McPherson. Obviously something that a lot of Auburn fans are excited to see him get back to full strength. On top of that, Hudson Cock. Talk to Hudson Cock. He's irritated that there's another person named Hudson on this team, and he gets really confused when somebody says Hudson and they don't know which one they're talking to. The special teams group. But more importantly, it's consistency with him. And Bernowski said that, fall camp, he said like you can see the power's better. He's hitting it. His process is better. It's just like you're seeing some progress made with him. He mentioned a stat that I didn't realize, Dan. Hudson Cock led the SEC in fair catches forced as a punter last year. And I think, here's the deal. I believe that to be true, obviously. It's statistically valid. I think it's the thing where it's like, I think the issue with him, though, is with the ones that weren't fair caught, they were usually because they were going out of bounds early. Like, and like, they weren't, like, it's consistency, right? Like, there were some really good punts. It's just you remember the not good ones as much. And you just got to round those out.
Yeah, but the bad news for Hudson Cock is that there are Hudson is an incredibly popular boy's name over the last 5-10 years, right? So, like, pretty soon.
He said this is the first time he's had to deal with it where someone his age. He's like, I know little kids are named Hudson now, but
I believe that in the last 10 years or so, you've seen the name soar in popularity to the point where, like, in the next decade, college football teams they'll be full of Hudsons. It'll be like Jalen in the NBA, right? Where there's gonna be a Hudson. There's gonna be a Hudson on every team pretty soon. But in the meantime, it's good to hear that he's getting more comfortable, and that's one where we've seen punters struggle and a year later put it together. We've seen punters who seemingly had it all put together suddenly lose their fastball, right, or develop the yips, or trail off dramatically from one season to the next. Like that's a tough position to project as far as what kind of season is this guy about to have. But it does feel like that a lot of the reasons you were excited about Auburn acquiring Hudson Cock in the first place, you would think that he's going to be able to showcase more of that this season.
Bernowski also mentioning that
I thought you were going to hit me with the actual like statistics on the name Hudson, and like I'm
going to get to that.
Okay, good.
Bernowski,
knowing you, I was like, you're looking that up while I'm talking right now.
Yeah. Bernowski said, I was looking at this up as well. Bernowski said that there were 4 guys that stood out to him, young guys, and one of them not a young guy, but a new guy, that have stood out to him on special teams, like really fighting for jobs and roles and playing well there. Scrap Richardson, Wayne Henry, Alvin Henderson, and Tay Meadows, which those are some athletes, man. Those are some athletes that you could throw on special teams. And we've talked about this with Alex Golish and as in the past. It's like where you get really fun as a team is if you have that depth where you feel like you're too deep is really, really good. And it's like, hey, these guys might not be quite in the rotation yet, but they're good football players, and you can put them out there on special teams. That just lifts your special teams. That just gives you a boost. So fun to say that. No, I was looking this up. Would you like to hazard a guess as where the name Daniel ranks among U.S. boy babies in 2025?
You know what? I feel like the Bible names are going out of style. I wonder if people are still naming their kids stuff like Daniel. So I'm gonna guess we're outside the top 50.
22.
Okay, all right. We're hanging in there.
Still a decently popular name.
No, that's a hit. That's a hit. You get the 22 on the Billboard Hot 100. You got yourself a hit song.
Now this is my part. This is the part of the question. Dan, did you know that Daniel is my middle name?
I think we've discussed that before. Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, you're talking about Bible names. So every one of my. How about this? I have 5 siblings, right? 5 of us have biblical middle names, and another one of us was named after my father. However, I'm the oldest, and I didn't get named after my dad. They just thought my dad's name worked better with my brother's name. So biblical names are still pretty popular.
Is there a famous Hudson that tipped off as a first name? I'm not talking about Tim Hudson. Okay. But is there a famous Hudson?
Maybe it is.
It might be. It's not the Bruce Willis movie Hudson Hawk, right? Like from the early 90s about the thief who likes to sing, songs that are in the public domain while he, does his crimes. But like, I don't know if there. I can't think of the. Maybe someone else will be able to come up with like, was there a famous Hudson in either a celebrity? Because usually what happens here, Justin, is that either it's a celebrity who suddenly rises to fame, and now people are like, oh, that's a cool name. I'm going to name my kid that. I believe that Carson Daly's ascension. I think the name Carson had a gigantic. Ashton Kutcher, same thing. Ashton Kutcher becomes a celebrity. People start naming their kids Ashton. And I want to say, after Britney Spears named her kids whatever she named them, not Sean, but the other one. It's like Jaden, I think. I think Jaden had a gigantic, or other sort of like Bradens and Haydens like that. That was part of that baby name trend. So it's either usually like a famous person, a real person, sets a trend, or it's a fictional character. I believe Aiden from Sex and the City is credited with sparking an Aiden renaissance in boys' names. But
so I'm looking this up, and apparently,
how's Hudson?
So Hudson became a name that broke into the top 100 in the U.S. around 2012. And last year, it jumped all the way. It is currently, according to this website, it is 14th among names in the U.S.
Maybe it was Tim Hudson.
And no one really knows why. It says it's part of a larger trend where you take last names and make them into first names for boys. So that's kind of become popular over the years. So it's kind of maybe the most famous example of that phenomenon. It also says
Mulder and Zito would also be cool first names. If you're
maybe my kid Zito.
Yeah, if you're picking
Hadberg.
Yeah, I'm saying if you're picking Moneyball A's to name your kid after Tejada.
I'm going
Tejada. Yeah.
Tejada.
Chavez.
It's this like breakdown says like trying to figure it out. And it's like people like it's like theories are like the Hudson River or Jennifer Hudson and Kate Hudson are very famous actresses from that time, and that's a last name that you can kind of they're famous Hudsons at least. That's a strange because it's a very, very popular name. Interesting. So that was your and then as we know, Dan, for people born around my age and a little bit older than me, Justin is a super popular name due to the fact that there are 3 people who cover Auburn with that first name right now. So I don't think we're making as many Justins anymore. Like I have not seen a baby named Justin in a very long time. So maybe that name's kind of died out.
I would love if it was Doc Hudson from Cars. That's the one that started this revolution.
Yeah, and then I named my kid McQueen.
Yeah. Chicow.
I think that's where we've got it right there. I think we've cracked the case of the missing Hudsons in the wide world of sports. So that's it for the podcast. This is a little bit shorter than usual because we're going to turn around and do another one of these later this week. Pretty quickly. We usually like to do the paid show like earlier in the week. I know we're putting it out on Thursday, but that's just how the schedule's kind of worked out with fall camp, so we've adapted to that. So you're still getting 2 a week. It's just we're having to kind of move things around a little bit. So we will try to record probably either Friday or Saturday and talk some scrimmage stuff and talk, looking ahead to next week of practice. So we got all that going on here at the Observer. Who knows? We might try to convince one of our friends to join the podcast. Might be good to throw in a friend. Might call an Adam Cole. Who knows? Might call up an Adam Cole or a Nathan King or somebody like that and pick their brain a little bit. Just change it up a little bit. Have some fun. I do want to also say something real quick before we go. And we'll come up with some nonsense to finish this out. You may notice if you listen to this podcast on Spotify that there are back episodes that are not there anymore. Spotify got really, in the last couple of weeks, got really strict about copyrighted music in podcasts, and they're starting to automatically detect it and take some episodes down. I'm not going to contest it. I really don't care that much. Apple doesn't have a problem with it. Pretty much any other thing. It's just Spotify's been really picky about it out of nowhere for all of a sudden. So if you listen on Spotify, you may, old episodes might not be there anymore. I would encourage you. That's why probably the best way to listen to these podcasts are, and I listen to podcasts on Spotify all the time. So I'm not being a hypocrite. Totally want to say this, but the Apple podcast feed's usually the most reliable one because they kind of invented the whole thing, or just going straight on the website or listening to them on YouTube. Those are YouTube will get picky about copyright music every now and then too, but not as much if you don't monetize them.
The Substack app, if you don't have it on your phone, the Substack app is great, and you can also you can either use the website on the browser or hit it up via the Substack app and listen that way.
I'll also float this out there. I was talking to some people earlier this week. Substack has speaking of the Substack app, they have a live chat option for subscribers that can kind of talk. People have done it with other Substacks in the past, and I've seen it before. I'm thinking we might roll that out this season on game days. People don't necessarily love hanging out on social media as much anymore because of differing factors. And I don't like being on Twitter as much as I used to, mainly because all my TweetDeck workarounds have died. I still tweet, though, on my phone. But for game days, if you're an Observer subscriber, we might have a place where y'all can come in and hang out and chat during the games with us. So, keep that in mind. So just throwing that out there, that might be an option for those of you who are Observer subscribers to get with us. But yeah, we'll be back later this week. Appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate all you guys for signing up who have joined us this week. And if you've joined us this week, you get another podcast later in the week. You get all the observations. You get everything we got going on at the Observer sent straight to your email inbox. $70 a month. $70 a month. I got to get used to saying this. $70 a year, $7 a month. So get at us there. Dan, want to wrap up the show with this conversation. You went to a buffet for dinner before we recorded. And I don't necessarily know if you want to dox yourself of where you were. You may. I don't know. It's up to you. But I did want to talk about buffets. And because it's a dying business model. And I hate that because growing up in a big family, buffets were a good godsend for us at times to eat. And I don't want them to go away completely. But they also need to be quality. You went to a quality one on Wednesday. What do you think about the state of buffets? This is a little Grubserver sidebar here. By the way, Grubserver voting's still open. We'll put the links in the description.
I'll tell you, I'm rarely at a buffet except this particular place that I attended with my folks, and it's I understand your concerns. I think COVID probably did a number on that, and also I think people have been there's the. I think people have been more germ phobic, right, in the aftermath of COVID-19. I don't know if that plays a role in buffet business going down or anything, but I do think that it's too bad because growing up, I have fond memories of hitting the. Did you have a Barnhills in? Because we had.
I've been to one before.
There was a Barnhills by the Santa Rosa Mall. back in the day that we'd go to, and a couple. Love a great Chinese buffet, right?
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you that. Like, do you have a fondness for a particular Chinese buffet that you like? Because they can be very hit or miss as a concept. There was where I grew up, the nearest Chinese buffet to us, the one in our town, was pretty good. Like, no complaints there whatsoever. There was a bigger one outside of town, about 15 minutes away in another town, that was very popular, but I always thought it was kind of terrible, quality-wise. So I do have a fondness of the China Wok, where I grew up, had a pretty good buffet. And I know there are places that have buffets in Auburn. I just have never really ventured to those. Like, I don't know. What do you feel about the classic Chinese buffet? Because I think when done right, it hits pretty well. And then I have another buffet I'll throw out there at you.
So Niceville had one near the high school in just like the coolest building ever. I want to say growing up it was called Shanghai. And now it's called, checking Google Maps, it's apparently called Bamboo. But it's on John Sims Parkway right by one of the big.
If it keeps lasting, it's just going to become more and more generic the later it gets. It's like Asia.
But I would say that from the outside you'd see this and you're like, oh, this is one of those buildings that can only be an Asian themed restaurant, with the way they've decorated it from the decor.
Yes.
It's like, I think like that and tiki bars, right, are the two things you can build where it's like, well, this can only be a tiki bar or an Asian restaurant.
It's like, have you ever seen, and this ties into my next question, but like, have you ever seen like the places that used to be Pizza Huts, and like you can look at them and be like, well, you used to be a Pizza Hut. You're not fooling me, Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Yeah, there's a couple of those. You see the ghost of a Checkers or a Sonic a shell of it used to be an A-frame Whataburger. It's like, oh yeah, okay. There's no doubt about what used to be here. And then I guess Auburn, I would have voted for the one on Opelika Road just before you get to the Asian supermarket.
Yeah, that's which one is that? That one has a lot of like support.
Is that Mandarin House?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Mandarin House, and I don't know if Mandarin House even does a buffet anymore. But I remember that being like the go-to Chinese buffet among my circle for a long time in Auburn.
All right, so Dan, how about the pizza buffet? Because Pizza Hut as a concept is trying to bring back that classic. They're like reopening that. We had a Pizza Hut buffet growing up that I don't particularly enjoy Pizza Hut's regular pizza, but like as a buffet, it wasn't bad. When I was younger and we lived in a different part in South Alabama, they still had Pizza Inn. Pizza Inn was great. Or at least I might have just been 7. But
how about I've tried Pizza Perfect for lunch.
Dude, Pizza Perfect in Montgomery. If you've never been, it's really good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
So you got Pizza Perfect and you got the lunch van, both like the brick and mortar location for Vicky's lunch van, both in very close proximity to one another. They're on.
Mary Kate was telling me about the Vicky's place the other day.
Yeah. And so it's like, and they're.
By the way, I had several people reach out to me about Hamburger King, and being like, because we were shouting it out the last time we did this on the podcast.
Big shout out to Hamburger King. You should go just to see the painting on the side of the building, right, of the king.
Yes.
But then you should also depending on what time it is, you should either get like a bacon, egg, and cheese or just a cheeseburger, depending on. But bring cash. But it's. With
that's so cool. That's still so cool.
It's
a pain. I don't ever carry cash, but I'd make an exception for places like that.
With Pizza Perfect, it's like there are. I guess my review would be there are some things that on the buffet that don't appeal to me whatsoever.
Sure,
but then there are also some things where it's like, man, I could eat a dangerous amount of this. Like I could. They have a couple of.
It's like the CC cinnamon rolls.
So with Pizza Perfect, they do a thin crust in a skillet, like a cast iron thin crust.
Oh.
And it's really, really, and it's like,
Oh.
you could make about 4 of these, I'm afraid. I could just...
You know what was the danger? I mentioned the cinnamon rolls at CC's. You know what the real danger was for me when I went to CC's? The one that got me more than anything else? The spinach Alfredo.
I was about to ask if it was the white pizza. Yeah.
It's so good,
Yeah.
man. Like, that's so good. Shout out.
Like
Shout out Buffets.
like a spanakopita sort of adjacent pizza. Spanakopita.